Yo, JD here, Limitless, and as you can see by the title of this video, we are back with another F1 Esports video, and this is the most recent race around Brazil. If you didn't catch it on the weekend, I would very much recommend it, and because you will actually be able to see the full race in this footage. But you're wondering, who am I on board with? And it is with the one and only Marcel Kiefer, and again, really appreciate him allowing me to use this footage. And this is actually his best practice lap he did beforehand. Actually isn't the Red Bull car. It sounds like it, looks like it, but it is actually the Mercedes car, and he is representing Red Bull this weekend because Frederick Rasmussen unfortunately cannot make it. But Marcel, I think, is a very, very good substitute, and you'll be seeing this throughout this whole footage, which I'll be showcasing the entire race, because I think this will give you just an insane perspective of how competitive this grid is. This is probably the most competitive grid there's ever been, and I've been involved in F1 Esports from the start. As he comes across the line, he does a 6.9, which is just absolutely nuts. But I think everyone is just getting so much more competitive and just getting to their potential a lot more. And I think you'll be able to see in these kind of videos, and feel free to anyone else who's in F1 Esports, if you want me to use your footage, then just feel free to just get in contact with me, because I'll happily showcase it. It's just insane. But we're going to jump on board for its actual official qualifying lap that he did in the session itself. So braking very, very late, locking the inside, quickly changing direction for right-hander, almost running out of track limits for here, staying nice and tight to minimize the distance of the track. It was trying to get a slipstream from the Alfa Romeo there, braking just before the 50-meter board, fourth gear. Some people elect to go down to third just for that little extra bite into the corner. He stays in the high gear for this occasion, going through this corner here, which is just very, very technical, using the curb on the outside, trail braking very nicely to hook the curb on the inside up into third gear, and then go down 2 gears, and then short shifting through the gears just to minimize the wheel spin, using all the track before going into this right-hander. You kind of have to almost drift the car going around here, completely flat out through this left-hander, and probably the hardest corner on the track coming up here. Very important to get this, because you need that momentum going uphill to straight. It's completely flat out to the line now. You can see Daniel Beresne has done a 7.0, which is very, very impressive in itself. Marcel's done a purple middle sector. He's got to across the line in P2, and you can see he's pretty happy with that, and you can see a little bit of swag going on with the shoulders. He's very, very happy. But look at how competitive this is. From 4th place down to 13th is less than a 10th of a second. And look at the times as well. That a 7.3 is like P14. That is just go and try that online and see what time you get, because that is insane. That is just ridiculous. And in this whole lobby here, as you can see, it's starting to be a wet race. The intermediate race is starting on. It's just ridiculous of how good everyone is performing. You can see Brendan Lee won last week. He's outside the top 10. It's just absolutely mind-boggling. So we've got 5 lights here. Let's see if he gets a good start. And as the lights go out, he has got an absolutely ridiculous start. Daniel Beresne has fallen back into P2, back into P3. He has lost 2 positions at the start. And I can confirm, well, we don't have footage from Daniel Beresne, but he said to me after the race that the lights didn't go out for him. And I think there is arguably a little bit of a glitch in this game. I think it's quite a common theme. I'm not saying that Marcel didn't get a good start, but I think it might have been aided potentially by the lights in his screen potentially going out a little bit earlier. But I'm sure he does not care in the slightest about that. I know I wouldn't care about that at all, because I had that at China in one of my league races in TSR. I went from like P10 to P4 because of this. And we're just going to stay on board now for this entire race, just to see how he's driving, just analysing his driving style, and you just don't understand. Like when I was talking about Rasmussen's footage at Australia, it's crazy. It's more about the mental thing, I'd say, about being in esports, because all these guys, these 20 guys in here, arguably are the 20 best on the game. You could say, there's people outside it who don't compete who could get into this grid. You could say that, but overall, you're not in here because you're not good. You're in here because you are absolutely rapid at this game, and all these drivers are. And it's just more about the mental state of mind, really, because it's just so much pressure on you, and especially for Marcel, as he already gets an invalidation already. 3 of those, you get a penalty, and since you're pushing the car to the limit around here, you cannot afford to get a penalty because you have to be fast and you have to be clean as well. If you get 1 penalty, you're going to be losing a good 5, probably 5+ positions as well. But with Marcel as well, he was actually in Toro Rosso. Rasmussen is unfortunately not able to race in this event, and for reasons I won't go into. I'm sure you might know why, but Marcel's got a lot of pressure on here because obviously he wants to impress. If he wants to drive for Red Bull, potentially in the future, whenever he decides to do it, I don't know if he's going to do it this season or not at all completely, but he needs to put in a Verstappen performance, being promoted from Toro Rosso to Red Bull. There's a lot of weight on his shoulders to really perform here, and you can just see already, the first thing I'm noticing, that he is just adapting so well to these conditions. Like the traction he's getting and just the confidence on the braking and traction is what I really noticed. Very similar to Rasmussen in a way. It's just absolutely incredible. Going into this corner, trail braking very well. Going down the gears very slowly just to keep the car stable. Upshifting into 4th again just to keep the car stable again. But look at how, he's almost on full throttle already coming out of that corner. And it's just, he gets on the throttle so early. And he's not afraid to go on the curbs as well. And leading back to what I was saying before, there's a ton of pressure on this guy. And I also want to say about Marcel, I don't know him that well personally. I haven't spoken to him too many times in real life, but I think even if you don't know someone personally that well, there is no doubt that this guy works extremely hard. I really like his attitude. He's always super positive all the time. He's done really good results in esports. He's been very consistent, and I think he is probably one of the hardest guys working at his talent. You've got to have talent, but you also got to have hard work as well. And I think this guy's got both. I think he's one of the hardest workers, and it's generally really nice to see him put in this kind of performance right now. And you can see he's almost got, I think it's over a 1.5 second lead that he has got already. And look at the gap. The gap is huge to Lucas Blakey, who, again, he's putting in a really strong performance. He's a guy who's actually upcoming, who's started to put in very good performances. He goes into the 17s, the only man into 17s. Almost a 2-second gap already after 4 laps. That is just, you can see full throttle again already. He's just so confident on the throttle, particularly the throttle. He's just insanely confident. And you can see with the grid as well on the mini-map, everyone is fairly close to each other. Obviously in wet conditions it's going to be a little bit more spread out, but there's not a big gap between everyone. Only the biggest gap is between Marcel and P2. That is the biggest gap on the grid right now, and you can see it's just very controlled. Not too many corrections or anything at all, but yeah, just his complete throttle control. You can see here, gets on the throttle as soon as it's straight, go on the throttle, using all the track, like Rasmussen does as well, using all the track maximum. Really likes to go out wide here. I really like this line that he's doing. Instead of going tight, he really is trying to maximize the track as much as possible, and you can see it's working extremely well. Changing the ERS before he does the fuel, underfueling the car a little bit as well, which we actually had a little bit of a discussion about before doing this. I think he could have even underfueled it a little bit more because he was saving quite a lot as he sets another fastest lap of the race. And in these conditions it is so easy to make a mistake. Believe me, I know I've crashed out of league races when it's been wet. It's just insanely difficult, and when you're just in this scenario, you can see the concentration on his face. You got to be completely dialed in. And again, the car almost spinning out, and you don't understand how difficult that is to control. He just has that just elite confidence. I haven't actually really seen this kind of driving in the wet for quite a long time, and I think with Marcel's driving style, I think he would agree that there are probably some people on raw one-lap pace who might be quicker. But I've seen in the past, particularly esports events, when the weather conditions are changing, he is very quick at adapting to this. And I think this is the case that we're seeing here. He's just adapted to this very well. This isn't even a wet setup that he told me. He said it was a complete dry setup. But he just got used to the conditions very well. And you can see the gap is over 2 seconds. He's pulling away about three or 4 tenths a lap. At this point, if it continues at this rate, then he's going to have, he can afford to get a penalty. That's right, as he sets in another fastest lap of the race of a 17.7. So just been within the 10th of a lap each time so far. And like we said at Australia, when you're driving at this level, you just have to be hitting that same point every lap. You just got to envision yourself like you're playing Scalextrics, like you're holding a remote and you're just pushing the power down, and that's it. But he does a little bit of a lock up, goes slightly wide here. Was surprised that actually wasn't a warning, because he already has 1 warning. And if you get 2 warnings, then I can tell you now, especially for my league races, then you do drive a lot more cautiously. But when you're at this level, you have to maximize the track. You have to maximize the benefits that you get in the game. You have to use everything to your advantage, even if it's realistic or not. You have to use everything that you can here. And you can see, using that wide line, once again, just allowing him to get much earlier on the throttle. And no, it's a really, really impressive performance so far. But you can see the gap now has actually started to level out. This is probably the only gap so far that Lucas Blakely has actually caught up a little bit. So I would say at this point in the race, Marcel's adapted better than anyone in these conditions. But I think now you can see by that gap going across the line, no, it's starting to level out a bit more. So sometimes it takes a few drivers, or the majority of drivers, to really kind of get used to these conditions as much. But it is just so hard to overtake in the wet. There is no DRS. No, although we've got a long straight, it's a pretty difficult track actually to overtake at as well. And you can just see that gap. It's just starting to level out right now. And in his mind, I'm sure he's feeling the pressure and everything, but you just got to just try and stay as calm as you possibly can. So a little bit more oversteer now, because the intermediates are definitely not as durable as the wet tyres. Normally in a 50% race, you're going to have to pit again for intermediates, although this is a 25% race, but still, you could do the whole race on it, but it's going to be still a significant amount of wear, and you're going to have to ensure that you're on the track at all times here. Let's see what the gap is going through here, and he's started to pull away a little bit now. And as I said before, momentum is a very, very important thing, because I'm sure every sector he is probably looking at that gap every single time. And if momentum is on your side, it's just psychologically, it's just so important for you. He locks up a little bit again, but as long as you make the corner, it doesn't really matter too much in the slightest whatsoever. And running out onto this curb again, he really likes to do that. Really likes to take nice wide lines into corners. He really likes to, I'd say, get a much better exit than entry. He's not very aggressive on the entry of the corner, and I think we're going to see that going into this right-hander. So you can see here, going into here at the 50-meter board, it's quite a wide line, but make sure he gets a very, very nice exit. Same for this one again as well. He's definitely all about the exit speed, which in these conditions is absolutely the thing that you need to do. But another thing of mine as well is that the weather is scheduled to actually change towards the end of this race too. And you can see the car is starting to become a little bit more unstable as the track goes on, and you can see the gap is just maintaining now. So that gap is just 2.3 seconds. You can see where it's going down ever so slightly, just a little bit. He told me that he was worried about the engine temperatures and stuff in this race. And you can see he actually, I think you didn't see that there because I actually covered up the MFD for his benefit, but he's actually fiddling around changing tyres, because he's predicting that there could be some dry weather towards the end of this race. And you can see every single lap it seems to be just getting a little bit more uncomfortable every single time, but he's still just over a tenth down, and the gap is still staying the same behind. And I don't think there's really too many overtakes going on in this race, because in intermediate conditions where the track is just so narrow, it's going to be very, very hard to perform an overtake around here. And locking up a little bit more as the laps go on, but I'm sure he is just completely focused on the task at hand, just every apex at a time. But I'm also sure that he's probably looking at that gap every single point. But let's see, it takes a really wide line again, going through into here. 5th gear, likes to use the high gears just to keep the rear end stable. And you can see Jeff telling him the grip levels are starting to go down, because I think the track is slowly starting to dry. And now this is probably the first lap that I've seen where Lucas Blakey has actually started to just catch him ever so slightly. And looking at his fuel and ERS use, as I said, I think he could have maybe even underfueled the car. And he seems to be putting it down pretty easy, because he did say to me he was actually worried about engine temperatures and stuff like that as well. But I think it's something you don't have to worry a little bit too much. I think that was the first sign of a little bit of a correction, maybe the first error that I've seen so far. And going through into this first sector, let's see what we can do here. You know, the gap is actually extended again, so no, it just seems his traction, you can see especially come off those kind of corners, he just an absolute rocket ship coming off those corners there. He just seems to have just so much confidence going into this one. But I think it is shortly approaching the time where it could be dry conditions. And when this kind of thing happens in races, which I really hate, I'd rather it just be full wet, awful dry all the time. It's a very horrible feeling when you're in the lead, because you're the guy that has to make that decision. But the comforting thing is that the lap time still seems to be staying the same. He actually sets a purple middle sector as well, so that gives you a little bit of reassurance, though, that these tyres still have the grip and you're still on the right tyre here. And you can see putting down the ERS pretty early, using lean in the corners, which I definitely agree with. He actually sets the quickest lap of the race, so that will give him a little bit of a confidence boost, because Blakey was catching him ever so slightly, but just on the exit this corner, it seems to be a very, very difficult corner, that one. But I'd say that corner and then this corner, the exit of this one coming up, I feel these are probably his best corners. I'm going through into here, and going with this one here, like, completely flat out. You don't understand how difficult that actually really is. Because see, the sky is starting to actually lighten up a little bit now, and I think it could be the time soon to go on those dry tyres. He might do another lap, and I think we'll just talk about his braking points and everything on this lap as well, using all the track when he comes into corner, almost, well, pretty much on the white line going into there, and taking a very nice wide swooping line. Normally I'd go quite tight, because see, the steering starting to become a little bit more affected now, but the lap time is still maintaining the same, so it gives you a little bit of comfort. But although the lap time is still the same, it just seems to be getting a little bit more uncomfortable each and every single time. And he's looking at his tyre temps, it seems to be in pretty good condition right now. So let's see what his braking point is going into turn 1 on this occasion. I'd say about the 100 meter ball he's braking into there, really slow in, fast out, trying to do that slingshot corner that I always talk about quite a lot of the time. Try and stay tight, but then let the car drift out wide onto his curb. Just try and use it as much as you can, because you want to be on the throttle as well as soon as the car's straight, really. So he's using all the track as much as he can. Going into here, just braking between the two balls, electing to stay in 4th gear. Doesn't want that extra rotation, because that might make the rear end rotate a little bit too much. Just before the 50 meter board, holding it in 5th gear, going through into here. And you can see Jeff is now telling him about the weather, that it's starting to clear. And you can see I don't think any rain is even falling anymore. A little bit of a dry line, in fact, is actually coming out. And no, there's a pretty much of a bold decision you've got to make. You see the car definitely seems to be suffering a little bit now. It'll be interesting to see what his sector time is, because that normally will give you quite a good indicator. Going through here, he's losing half a second, so the tyres are starting to go as well. But I would also say he's losing some time behind as well. I'd say it's a pretty good time almost to be going into the pits, and he doesn't go into the pits this occasion. It might be a little bit too early. Let's see what the lap time is, and he's lost even more time as well. So I'd say it's getting very, very close to dry conditions. I'd say probably the next lap. Normally when you're going about over a second a lap more slower, or quite a bit more, and you can see the car's really fighting like this, then I think that's normally a pretty good indication of when you're having to go on dry tyres. And normally when DRS isn't actually enabled, that is the 100% confirmation that the right time is to go on those tyres. And I think at this stage he's probably thinking about it. I think he's going to go on the phone with Yoni Tomala to ask him his advice. Going to, let's see what the grip is like coming into here.
Do you think it's time for slicks?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say it's that kind of time as well. We'll be able to see what the sector split's going to be as well. You can see the track, he's really starting to lose some traction now. And I'd say if he's over second down on this split, then I think it is definitely time to be pitting on those dry tyres. Going slightly tighter, definitely can't go as flat out this time. Let's see what the sector split is. No, it's about 6/10 slower, but I think it's clear to see that the tyres are really starting to go. And let's see if he actually goes into the pits this time. And yes, he does. He does. That's a very, very bold move. Very, very bold move going into the pits when you're the leader of the race. And the other two actually continue. Blakely and Daniel Berezne actually continue. And a lot of people continue, including Yanni Tomler, his teammate. And let's see what happens here. Does he get held? No, he doesn't get held. So he has a very clean start. Very lucky that the Williams just got past him. And let's see what the grip is going to be like now. So coming off here, this is one of the hardest pit lanes to come out of. And you can see really, really squiggly through here. And I'm sure
it's still too slow.
That is not feeling that much of confidence. But you will have a very good indicator very soon, because these guys are still on wet tyres. And if you're on the right tyre, you should be catching them pretty quickly here. So braking into here, it seems to be pretty similar to the intermediate. So it seems to be a 50-50 kind of zone at this point. But I'd say towards the end of this lap, they really should start coming to him. And you can see already, he wants these guys to let him pass, because they are in Toro Rosso. So effectively, pretty much under the same team. And I don't think they are going to let him pass, because they want to do the best race that they can. But no, I think he has pretty much nailed that strategy. He really, really has actually nailed it. And so he's got past Graham Carroll. Let's see if he can get past Patrick Holtzman. Taking the wide line again. Patrick goes a little bit deeper, runs out onto the curb. And you can see it's not fully dry yet, but it's getting there. And you can see getting a much better exit. A very, very tricky place to actually overtake going into here. So it's going completely flat out. Let's see how many positions that, how much time, in fact, that he has actually gained, or maybe even lost. He might have even lost some time. So going across here, he's gone back into P1 temporarily, but Blakely is coming out the pits, but due to the pit lane, you think he's gone back into the lead. But let's see what the gap is actually going to be. And as he looks behind, Blakely's coming out the pits now. Let's see what that gap is going to be as he crosses it now. About 2 seconds, so he has lost a little bit of time, but I'd say that is mainly down to the Toro Rosso pairing, where he had to navigate through that. So I'd say he absolutely nailed the strategy, and fair play to him for making that decision. It's definitely not an easy decision to make, because you're pretty much the guinea pig. And with this game, as we've seen in some of my league races recently, sometimes the rain can take ages to dry out, or if it starts raining, it takes 3 or 4 laps. Sometimes it could just be instant. But now I'd say it's getting very, very close to full-on dry conditions. So the track still appears to be a bit greasy. But Blakely is catching him quite a lot in that middle sector. And just a lap fresher tyres on the softs, particularly in these kind of conditions, can prove to be extremely beneficial. So going across the line, Marcel does do the quick snap of a 12.3, which is not particularly quick, as Alvaro Caraton goes 3 tenths quicker, and then it's 11.7 to David Teniza, and I think the times are just going to be tumbling now. And I think whoever was on fresher tyres, whoever's further behind, you could just see almost a second faster already. And I think we're going to just see even more fastest laps coming through into the field here, as the track is just going to get drier and drier each time. And you can see the gap is still coming down between both of them. And let's see how he handles this, pretty much using the same gears. And now he's got a pretty good lead, but he can't afford to get any more warnings. I think he's just got the one warning so far, but he's just got to really just help keep his head in the game. And I can't tell you, if you're in this kind of position, of how hard it is to keep your focus and keep your cool. It is just so hard to do. So obviously the track is going to just get quicker and quicker each time. I think the gap is pretty similar to what it was
I will mute myself, Yanni.
In the first one. You can see now he's going to mute himself because he just wants to just fully focus, which I can completely understand. I would not want to be talking to anyone at this point here. So he does a 1.9. You can see the track has just improved by 3 seconds on that lap, but I think you're going to see some other times go quicker than that. As they're further behind, the track is just going to get drier and drier, and I think quite quickly you'll be seeing some other times kind of purple, which you do. You see another 9.5 from Cedric Tom, CRG Evo, and let's see what the gap is now. It's gone up a little bit more. Donoso does a 9.0, so that's half percent, and that is another invalidation. So if he gets one more, that is going to be a 3-second time penalty, and imagine leading this race the whole time, so he has to be careful. But the good thing of him, he does have a lead, so I'm very, very sure on this last lap that he is going to take it very, very easy. He does not need to push really or anything, or take any major risks. He really just doesn't need to do that. He's got plenty of fuel, plenty of ERS to play with as well. See, Blakely, the gap is starting to stabilise behind. And yeah, he's asking for a little bit more yeah, he's asking Jeff to shut up, which, as I said, I'm sure I would be doing the same thing as well. But going across the line, he improves his lap time, but I think he's going to be taking it pretty easy. You can see through here, don't think it was maximum commitment, as Michael Romadis does a 9.0, and Brendan Lee now goes into the 8s. So you're just confirming how much quicker the track really is getting. It would be very interesting if this was a 50% race of how this would actually turn out. But going through that first sector, I think, you know, he's not taking any risks. He really does not need to be doing this, and you know, his style, it just looks like he's just been in complete control of this race. His braking and traction has just been absolutely insane. I think he's adapted to these conditions the quickest out of everyone. He's kept an insanely cool head using all the tracks. So he's pushing a little bit now. Let's see what his middle sector is. I'm sure it's going to be an improvement. And then what he has done before going through this middle sector, well, he hasn't actually improved, in fact. Coming off here, now Blakely has caught him, but I think he has been taking it extremely easy on this last lap. Coming through into the final straight, he's going to go across the line to win this F1 Esports Pro Expedition race, and you can see I fully understand that reaction, because I do that myself when I've had very, very good races. So GG to him. He just had complete control of that race, and you can just see how close the field is from like first to last. You know, they've almost finished already. That is just how competitive this grid is. And this is probably the most competitive grid there's ever been. Not gonna lie, no, excepting Rasmussen not being there, and maybe the likes of like Jana Opme and stuff like that. No, the level that these guys are driving at is just absolutely insane. And no, fair play to everyone here. I cannot wait for the future of F1 Esports as well. Thank you so much to Marcel for letting me use his footage. Make sure you go and subscribe to him on his Twitch channel and his Twitter as well. Make sure you go give him a follow. I wish him the best of luck for the rest of this season. And as I said, if anyone else wants to send me the footage, then by all means, just get in contact with me. Thank you so much for myself and my support on my channel, and I will catch you very soon. Peace.